Hi, welcome to my session. My name is Nikki Bradenberg and I am the Director of Education at Montana PBS. This session is all about a coding app for young children called PBS Kids Scratch Jr. I'm going to walk you through how to use the app and then show you the free curriculum that is aligned to this app so that you can get your kids started coding tomorrow. While this app can be used in an in-person setting, we also think it would be great for our remote learners as well. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we go through the session. So as I said before, my name is Nikki. I am the Director of Education here. I was hired 4 years ago by Montana PBS to develop professional development for teachers who were using technology in the classroom. I'm a former elementary school teacher. I taught for about 16 years, mostly in the K-1-2 primary space. This is my contact information and the link to the Montana PBS website. And I'd love it if you found me on Twitter and we can interact there. So coding may or may not be something that you're doing with your students. I hope you've come to this session because you're excited to give it a try, or you just wanted to try a new coding project with your students. Coding is what we think of as the new literacy. It's an amazing way for kids to practice the skills of sequencing and putting things in order and giving them a skill that could lead to a career in technology. The next video I'm going to show is a video created by PBS about coding and why we think it's important to teach young students how to code. I hope the video will play well in this screencast. I apologize if it doesn't.
Coding is the new literacy. When we think about reading and writing, we think about words on a written page, but coding is the language that computers speak in.
The way we define coding is creating a series of instructions that tells a computer or another piece of technology what to do.
Gosh, when we think about computer coding, we think about people sitting somewhere in a dark room in front of a great big monitor and they know this secret language that no one else knows except them. But what I've learned with PBS Kids Scratch Jr. is that everyone can code. It's a language that we can all learn and that we can all speak.
It's not a bunch of zeros and ones. It's not even really an unfamiliar language. There's a lot of easy ways that you can implement it in the classroom.
When you use PBS Kids Scratch Jr. app on your mobile device, each of those blocks do a different thing. You're putting them together in a sequence and you're creating anything that you want to create.
Educators do not need to be proficient in coding to teach kids to use this app.
Teachers are able to very quickly understand how to use it as a learning tool in their classroom. And really and truly, if the teacher gives the kid the go-ahead, the students are going to be able to teach the teacher.
All right, hope you enjoyed that little introduction to coding. The link to that video is right there if you wanted to watch it again or share it with a colleague. So the act of coding means to create a sequence of instructions that a computer or any other technology will follow in the exact order that they are placed together in order to do some kind of an action. The app we're working with today uses blocks like this. It's called block coding, and they fit together like puzzle pieces. Each of the blocks represents a different instruction or an action that impacts the character on the screen. When the blocks are snapped together, they create a sequence of actions that the character will follow. And of course, because it's the PBS Kids Scratch Jr. app, the PBS Kids characters, such as Peg and Cat, and the Wildcrats, and Ready, Jet, Go, are the characters that kids can animate using blocks of code. So the way to do this is first you need to download the app. It looks like this. It's got a picture of Dot and she's holding a blue motion block. This works the best on an iPad, goes into all of your Apple devices. It also works on a tablet that you might get from the Google Play Store or on your Kindle Fires. It tends to work on our newer devices more than our older devices. It can also work on the newer Chromebooks. And so if you have a Chromebook that's registered to the school domain, you may have to get your administrator to push that app out to your Chromebooks. So if you haven't already, you can download the app on one of your devices and follow along with the training. If you can't get it to download or it doesn't work, just feel free to watch the training, and all of these materials will be available for you to go through later on. This app, because it just takes Wi-Fi to download it, but then once it is on your device, it doesn't need Wi-Fi to operate. So it's one of those great apps that students can do on a tablet, whether they're in Wi-Fi or not. So at the very beginning, these are the goals that you might set for yourself as you're learning to use the app. There are similar goals that you might set for your students. Understand the features, learn how to make basic programs, which should be one character doing a couple of different actions. Learn what all the blocks are and what they do, and then take some time to play and discover things on your own. So when you open the app, this is the first page you see. When I'm teaching students to use this, I like to project my iPad and have it showing on the screen. If you're teaching remotely to students who are home, you might want to try and connect your iPad to your computer so they can see your screen as you're guiding them along. The start button is where they need to start, and I always like to ask students where they think what I should touch, and usually they're pretty good at figuring out this start piece. There's a how-to button there that kids could touch and would give them a little brief tutorial about using the app. This is what you're going to see when you open the app. So you're at what we call the home screen, and this picture of a house can get you back to the home screen once you start using the app. If you've used Seesaw before or any other primary student app, you know that plus signs are how we make new things. So you always tell students to look for plus signs, and that's how we start new projects. If this is the first time you've opened the app, you'll probably just see one blank page and a plus sign. If other people have been using the iPad, there may be some other projects populated on the screen. You can see that we've got a light bulb here, which will have some samples and some tutorials that are built right into the app for you to use. And you can always grab some information from this right here. So when we open the app, we always tell the students to touch the plus sign to begin. And now we're going to see this as your screen. A lot of different things. I like to show this to the kids and have them point out and tell me what they see. We just come to the screen and maybe I'm projecting it for everyone to see, or maybe I'm sharing my screen on a computer in a virtual meeting. And I just say, what do you see? What do you think we should touch first? What do you think will happen when we touch that? And just touch a bunch of different things so they can get an idea of what this app does. By default, the program will place Dot, this little green girl, on your screen. And she will be the character that when you drag blocks into the workspace, that will move. Most of the time, kids don't want to program Dot. They would rather program a different PBS character. And I'll show you how to change that in the next screen. So you can see down here that we've got Dot kind of black and white. And that means that whatever code we drag into this space, that's the character who will be doing those actions. You'll see here's where we have our motion blocks. We always start with the yellow blocks, and that's where our start blocks are going to be. And we work our way over to red, where the ending blocks are. We add new characters so that we could code several characters in the same scene. And we can also have several different scenes, and we can code a character to move between those scenes. Presentation mode, grid view. Grid view is nice because once they start figuring out just how many spaces they want a character to move, they can use the grid to help them give the right amount of commands. Background allows us to go from this boring white background to a setting that's different types of places, like the mountains or the savannah or a house or a classroom or a playground. So kids can touch right there and find a setting. This is where they can type text. This button allows them to reset the character, which is an important one to show them because as they build code, the character will start moving around on the screen and will move from where they started and won't go back to start on their own. So the students need to do that. Once they built their code, they always touch this green flag. That's like the play button. You start on the green flag. And this space is where we will drag blocks as we're using the app. So when we create a program, we start by adding a character, and we can either touch the plus sign. Dot is going to naturally be on there. And so I always teach kids to touch Dot and hold her until she jiggles. Dot will start jiggling and a red X will appear above her head. And so we teach kids plus signs add things, X's get rid of them. So they'll tap the red X and there will be no character on the screen. And then they will need to go over to the left side of the screen and touch the plus sign. That will open up the character bank, and they can scroll through all of the different characters to be added to this scene. As I said, they can choose the wild crats, peg plus cat. They can choose Dot and Dash. They can choose nature cat. All of their favorite PBS characters are part of this app, which makes it so much fun for the kids. Then they need to drag blocks into the programming area. We always start with the green flag. The program won't run if it doesn't have a start with a green flag or a yellow block. Blocks need to stick together or it won't work. And when we're finished, we run the program. To demonstrate, I always just grab 3 motion blocks, snap them together, and put this at the end. Doesn't take very long to see that that program doesn't produce a lot of motion, but it's a good place to start. Here are your block types. Your yellow blocks are your trigger blocks, meaning on, when this, start. The most common one we use is a green flag. This one means when I touch the character. So they might want to have a command that a user creates a little interactivity. When you touch the character, they move. This one is on bump. So when they get very good at this, they can figure out how to make one character bump into another character and then do something as a result of that bump. This trigger sends an email, makes a message to go to an email, which is a lot of fun. These are our motion blocks, up, right, left, up, down, and down again. They tell your character how to move. You connect them like puzzle pieces. And then of course your end blocks. You have a couple of options. This is just the end, and I always compare that to the period at the end of a sentence. You can also do this repeat forever. And so that means when it gets to the end, it just goes right back to the first start of the code and does that over and over again. Kids love repeat forever. This end block takes them to another page in the code. So they might do the activities on one page and then move into a second page where something new might happen. These are the looks blocks, and they're great for changing the size of the character, making them hide, making them show, or adding speech bubbles. And the kids can type in text to create a speech bubble for their character. Control blocks control the character's programs. They use them to pause the code or make the code happen quickly or slowly or repeat parts a certain number of times. So this is your loop function. They love the sound blocks. They can record themselves making sounds, and when the character comes to that block, their sound comes out of the device. A lot of fun. When we want to edit or delete a character, that's the very first question. How do I edit this? How do I get a new character? We can tap the paintbrush next to the character we want to edit, and we can hold the character until the X appears. The cool thing about this program is that all the characters can be edited and colored and changed. So we might, or students can design their own characters using a blank canvas and animate their own characters to move around. Some ways to start on tap, start on bump, and try it out. So maybe make 2 players play soccer, or make a ball roll away when a character walks near it, or bounce when you tap it yourself. So some fun ways to play with those blocks. You can also send a message. So you can tap the email message to the top, and it lets the characters send and receive messages that activate their programs. So in this example, tapping jump sends a message, and when Dot receives the message, it will trigger her to jump out. So that wasn't an email, I misspoke earlier. Recording sounds. The students can record themselves making a sound, an animal noise or something like that. They simply tap the microphone. This little section appears and they record themselves talking. They stop. When the 1 is next to the microphone icon, that means 1 sound has been recorded on that block. When the code goes through that part of the sequence, you'll hear the sound coming out of their device. You can use pages. So a student can code a character to move through many different scenes. The wonderful, creative little girl in one school that I visited, she had the character walk around through the first scene and coded it to look like she walked into a house in the first scene. And then when we went to the next scene, she was inside the house. So we can do a lot of fun things with creative digital storytelling. You can add text to the stage. Tap the ABC icon above the stage area. A text field will let you write messages on the screen with your tablet or your keyboard, and it can be moved wherever you want it to appear on the stage. You can change the color and the size and give it a line of text to narrate or label what's happening on the screen. So now we can do even more complex projects. You could make projects with up to 4 pages, create your own characters and your own backgrounds. Students really love that. Play around with your trigger blocks and your start on tap and your message blocks. You can even take pictures of yourself and add those to your project. There are free lesson plans that accompany this app, and they are at this website, pbskids.org/learn/ScratchJr. If you have a smartphone or a tablet, you can hold it up to this QR code right now, and it'll take you right to the lessons. I'm going to show those to you so you can see what they look like. Again, this is a free resource, and these are 8 scaffolded lessons meant to be taught in order because each lesson builds on the skills in the previous lesson. And by the time students make their way through the lessons, they're creating their own digital stories to go along with it. This website also has a lot of great resources for teachers, including a self-paced interactive workshop. So if you finish this recording, you needed a little more, you could click here. We have some videos where we can see educators using this in the classroom. How-to cards that you could print off or place in your digital classroom for kids to learn how to do the different commands. If you had your whole class code and they finished all the lessons, you could print a certificate and a social media badge to advertise your coding expertise. I'm going to show you what the first lesson looks like. This lesson is called The Tree Problem. These lessons are very user-friendly. They start with an overview of the lesson, give you some learning goals and what you can expect students to learn. Tells you all of your materials, as well as gives you your handouts that you might need, and also has a parent handout available in both English and Spanish. Now, these are suggested times. I've always done different versions of this lesson, haven't always needed all the time that they have recommended. But we would start by talking about the activity. This activity uses Peg and Cat. Peg and her friend Cat are always solving problems and using their problem-solving strategies to solve math problems. Peg and Cat is a math show for pre-K to first grade students. And we love it because Peg always has a really big problem. And she and Cat have to count down backwards from 10 to calm down and figure out their solution to the problem. This is a great language to give your students while they're building code and creating things with Scratch Jr. because the first time we develop a line of code, it doesn't do what we thought it was going to do. And we have to stop, figure it out, try something new, test it, and see if it works. And that's just the work of programmers. So then we could play a game called Simon Says with the group. The difference between Simon Says is that instead, we might use the green flag. So we might hold up a picture of the green flag instead of saying Simon Says. so that the students practice that skill of, oh, I move on the green flag. I don't move when I don't see the green flag, because all codes have to start on the green flag. When you introduce the app, you always want to give them time to explore and play. Kids will figure this out very, very quickly. They'll figure out how to do the most complex things before you're ready for them to do it. Rest assured, they can't get in trouble with this app. The best part is that they don't need to be able to read to use this app. It relies heavily on symbols and colors. And so even our youngest learners can be successful using this app. So we show them the characters. When we click on these hyperlinks, it just makes it a little bit bigger. So we can show them what the screen with the characters and backgrounds looks like. What does it look like to delete a character? What does it look like to place a character? And you can walk through all of these things as you're sharing the lesson. Then, one of my favorite parts of all of these lessons is there's a video clip to watch. And this one is about 11 minutes. You might want to just add this as something they watch earlier in the day or later in the day, or maybe they watch this at home before they come to class. You can do a flipped learning activity. They're learning remotely. You might put it in their Google Classroom or on their Seesaw page and let them watch it on their own. This video starts with Peg and Cat trying to get Peg down from this tree. And Cat goes through a bunch of solutions and none of them really work. And in the end, he ends up stuck in the tree with Peg. And it ends with the challenge that we're posing to students, which is now you need to write a code to get Peg and Cat down from this tree. So you set it up for the students to go back into the app, and they need to choose the background from the video, choose Peg and Cat, and they need to make a line of code, one for Cat and one for Peg, that when we touch the green flag, they both end up on the ground. And encourage them to show you their code. Now, if you're live in the classroom, this is easy. They build their code, and they show it to you. It's a little bit trickier if they are doing this at home. And so there are a number of things they can do once they've built their code and they want you to see it. Depending on their age and their ability, they could use their iPads to record their screen and create a video. And that video could be uploaded to Seesaw. If they're on a Chromebook, they might use a screencasting tool like Screencastify. And that would save to Google Drive, and then they could share it with you there. But the old-fashioned way that I've done it with kids is I have them run their code and I stand over top of it with my cell phone and I take a video of the code going, and then I can share that video with someone. They could also just take a screenshot right there on their iPads or on the Chromebook. So you as a teacher could see that image of the code, and you would probably be able to figure out where they landed and if they got it close enough. We always really encourage them to share their code with somebody, either at home or somebody in the class, and because there's no one way to get Peg and Cat down from the tree. There are a lot of different versions. Some kids code them to come all the way over here and then down like this. Some kids code them straight down. Some kids kind of do a stair-stepping code. It just is all up to them. They figure out very quickly that when they add a motion block, they can choose a number to go underneath of their motion block, and that can create a more efficient code. You can see where this one they've synchronized a timer so that Cat comes down, Peg comes down first, and then Cat comes. So they can get pretty fancy with their solutions. So once they've shared their solutions with the class, you can encourage them to keep going. You can give them a coding challenge to read through and maybe come up with another scene. There's a math extension and a literacy extension to this lesson. And then of course there's a take-home, a parent handout that maybe you put in your Seesaw family app, or maybe you send it home with kids who are there with you in person. And this is a report, a great way to share with parents what they did and to have parents support that coding work at home. And that's our first lesson. They can find more games and videos featuring Peg and Cat when they go to this link. So that's the first lesson in the free curriculum, the tree problem. And then the next one moves on to Creature Powers, which is a Wild Kratts themed lesson, and then an Odd Squad, Ready, Jet, Go, Nature Cat, Word Girl, and then they can do a mashup and create their own things. One thing I will show you are these how-to cards are really nice. Print them off or put them in Google Classroom or add as a PDF to your Seesaw class so that it's just a quick tips for how kids can add and delete characters and add backgrounds. Really nice visual cues to support kids as they're using this app. So that is the free curriculum that goes with PBS Kids Scratch Jr. I hope you've been playing with the app and figuring out how to do things as you've watched the video. Remember, you can go back to this link and find more videos to watch and more tutorials for how to use things. The sky's the limit for what we can do with this app. I think once you get kids going on it, you can make it one of their choices either in the classroom or at home, and allows them to practice problem solving and storytelling and just have a great time learning to code. So think about, how could this go beyond coding? How could you take this a little bit further? How does this connect with math, with social studies, with science, with geography, with language arts? So we've got a chat box going for this session. This is a recorded video, but I'm live in the chat box. And it would be great if you shared your ideas about how you see this app being implemented with your students in person or at home. I'm just going to share some ideas that other teachers have used this for. They've illustrated a story or a chapter. They've used it to predict the ending of a story. They've used it to identify the setting and the characters in a story. In math, we can use problem solving and perseverance. We can work with grids, because remember, we can turn on that grid view and have students be really precise about the number of spaces up and down and over that it might be using. Sequencing is really important in coding. If we don't have the right sequence, the character doesn't do what it's supposed to do. In science, we can study biomes and habitats. The Wild Kratts lesson is great because it has students choose an animal and then choose that animal's natural habitat. And so there's, desert and jungle and mountains and all kinds of options. And then they have to code that animal using its creature power from Wild Kratts. So maybe it's blending in, or maybe it's moving fast, or maybe it's hiding. So some kind of an animal activity. Another one thing I wanted to share with you was, if you like the PBS Kids Scratch Jr app, you may be interested in some of the other free apps that PBS has created for young learners. So I want to show you how to find those apps and highlight a couple of them. If you are at your Google search page, you just type PBS Kids Apps, and you'll get this list. The very first one that says apps and more, PBS Kids mobile downloads, will bring you to this page. And they're always highlighting, one every month, but when you scroll down to popular apps, you'll see all of the apps that PBS Kids has available for download. They also have a few ebooks that you might want to check out, some albums that can be downloaded to play on a device. Most of them connect you to iTunes. And most of these apps can be found across all of these platforms. So depending on the devices you have available, they're the most friendly on our mobile devices, especially the iPads and Google Plays. But most of these apps are free. There are some paid apps, and I always advise teachers to start with the free apps and use those. There are plenty of them. The ones that are paid are usually, $1.99 to $2.99, and they might be great, but I really recommend just sticking to the free ones. The great part about most of the PBS Kids apps is once they're downloaded, they don't require Wi-Fi to work, and so kids can use them wherever. Take them with a device. There's a couple apps that are my favorite that I want to show you. This one, the Cat in the Hat builds that, is for teaching kids about STEM and the principles of engineering specifically. It does also have elements of this app live on the pbskids.org/games page as well. So if you don't have tablet technology and you have kids working on Chromebooks or laptop computers, they can do the same apps through the pbskids.org page. To me, this app is really great for helping kids problem solve and practice STEM principles. The first one is all about building bridges, and there's a little dinosaur character that walks across a bridge after the children have used their fingers to drag a bridge with different materials. So there might be some twigs, there might be a nice solid concrete beam, there might be a canoe, or and some materials are more strong than others. They have to use glue to hold the pieces together and really reflect on, why did the dinosaur or the dragon fall through the ravine? Why wasn't my bridge strong enough? There's a couple of screenshots of how the view of this game. It takes them through different choices. This is the bridge game. This is a slides game where they have to take the characters down a slide and play with the different materials. This is great activities teaching kids to sort materials by property. Another amazing thing about most of these apps, but this one in particular, that if you come to PBS Learning Media, which is the free website for educators. So there's another session at this conference about this particular website. This website has teaching resources that go along with our PBS Kids programming, specifically the Cat in the Hat app. So if I type in Cat in the Hat into the search and I scroll down, the Cat in the Hat builds that app appears here, and you can get to it from there. You can also find it in the Ready to Learn initiative. Comes up under games. So there's Sort-a-Mizzou and Slide-a-Mizzou. So this is direct links to Bridge-a-Rama, was the game I was telling you about. And so Bridge-a-Rama is an example of a game that has support materials with it. So there's a facilitator's guide for using this game and how to integrate this game into your classroom and working with students. There's both English and Spanish for that one. We scroll down a little bit here. You can see more resources that go along with that Cat in the Hat builds that app. The Building Bridges Teacher's Guide goes along with the Cat in the Hat builds that app. And I'll put a link to this in the chat so you can see it. But this is a whole teacher's guide that accompanies media clips as well as the use of the app. So when we look at this collection, we have some clips that set up the kids to watch a video about the problem that needs to be solved. It has some lessons and some teaching tips for how we might build bridges and make them strong and sturdy, and then supports the use of the app is another way to build those skills and lessons. So that's some of the ways that you can use the Cat in the Hat app and some other PBS Kids app. Going back to our app page and looking at some of the other apps that are available for PBS Kids. Play and Learn Engineering is coming up here first, and this is really meant to be played at home with parents and kids playing together. But I think it's it's got 8 educational games in there. You can kind of see all of the games and what they're involved. They're building towers and feeding animals and controlling robots and building machines, designing roller coasters. So a lot of really great playful learning digital experiences with our PBS Kids apps. I also wanted to take a quick moment to show you, I'll be sharing some of the support materials I've shared in this session are the PBS Kids free apps and paid apps and the learning goals that are connected to each of those apps. So this document gives you the name of the app and the learning goal and the age group that you would serve when you meet all of those. So that's going to be in the support materials. It also lists paid ones and what learning goals those apps support as well. So just an opportunity to tell you a little bit about PBS Kids Apps and how you might use those. I'd also like to direct your attention to the Montana PBS website, montanapbs.org. You find our education tab up here. You can see all of the resources that we have for families, particularly the Learn at Home resource that we're put together for remote learning and distance learning for students learning at home during this time. We've revised the program schedule to offer curriculum-aligned programming for kids who might be at home during the school day for pre-K through 8. These are the schedules for those programs. If you open the schedule and you click on the program, it will give you a resource aligned to that program. And so the idea we're going with that is that, you know, maybe you'd ask a student at home to watch an episode of Wild Kratts and then come and do this activity that went with that episode. It would be a nice multimedia experience. So just a couple of bonus resources there. We also invite you on our education page to scroll to the bottom and join our educator newsletter so that you can get updates from us about new events and apps and services and things that we are currently offering for educators. Thank you for taking the time to listen to this session. I hope you've been asking lots of questions in the chat box and that you found all these links helpful. Please reach out to me and my team member, Deanna Midland, if we can help with anything, and enjoy the rest of the conference.